Hollow Knight is an action-adventure exploration game, also known as a Metroidvania game for its similarities to the games Metroid and Castlevania. It was developed by Team Cherry, who is based in Adelaide, Australia, and is dedicated to creating crazy, fantastical worlds for players to explore. The game was released for PC and Mac in 2017, and was further released for consoles in 2018. The game is based in a long-abandoned insect kingdom of Hallownest, whose haunting depths draw in the adventurous and brave with promises of treasures and answers to ancient mysteries. The player controls an insect-like, silent and nameless knight while exploring the underground world. The knight wields a nail, which is a cone-shaped sword used both in combat and environmental interaction. In most areas of the game, the player encounters hostile bugs and other sorts of creatures that roam around Hallownest. These creatures, once bright and full of life, are now being controlled by an ancient infection that seeks out the dreams of its targets and consumes their sentience and individuality to become one part of the whole. However, the game does not just focus on combat. There is also a large explorative element to the game, which allows you to go around the kingdom and find hidden objects and artifacts to increase your power and wealth. Many areas also contain powerful foes known as bosses, which the player may need to defeat in order to progress the game, or can help them by increasing the amount of damage they can take and the amount of damage they can deal in return. One of the things I love the most about this game, however, is the amount of effort that Team Cherry put in to make it beautiful and absolutely terrifying, depending on which area you're in. Not only that, but they also placed a lot of emphasis on the world evolving as you do. For instance, after you defeat a certain boss, known as the Mantis Lords, the other mantises in the village will then bow down and treat you as an equal. You can also go back to older sections in the game to find items and abilities which can further increase how much damage you can take. For instance, Mask Shards, which increase the amount of health that you have. This game is a true spectacle with incredible lore and history throughout its world, but the most important thing is the music. Without the excellent music scored by Christopher Larkin, this game would be nowhere near as impactful as it is. This is shown very well in the City of Tears. Now, this location is one of the most serene and calm of all the areas, with its constant gentle rain, as well as the inhabitants not being all that dangerous. Now with the music, this is shown by at first there being a harp, which is then joined by a gentle choir, which illustrates to me the rain that is slowly falling throughout the kingdom. However, as the song progresses, it is then joined by a piano and more of a choir, and then is backed by strings to show the grandiose nature of this once great kingdom. But as the song draws closer to its conclusion, the cello becomes the foreground, which to me shows that it's also being a song of mourning, that this kingdom is now in disrepair and is being taken over by this infection. This song in particular highlights to me Christopher Larkin's ability to tell a story with his music. And the story he tells through this particular track is a tragic one, as he recounts the fall of Hallownest in its most tragic state. The instruments used in this piece really help to highlight this area as one of the best in the game, with the gentle harp at first showing the pattering rain on the windows, slowly transforming into the much more somber cello, which shows that this was once a bustling city full of sentient life and is now full of the roaming husks. Now, the next track I will be talking about is Dung Defender. Now, despite appearances, this bug was once a noble knight of the kingdom who fought alongside his fellow four knights to maintain order and protect Hallownest. His theme is far more upbeat than something like the City of Tears, as we discussed before, as it begins with a xylophone and horns with underlying strings such as the violin and the viola and the cello, to emphasize that he is a very jovial character. He loves this fight as he finds it very fun, and he finds that you, as a knight, are full of honor, vigor, and determination to succeed, and he is enjoying every second of his brawl with you. As the song progresses, a clarinet is added to it, followed by an oboe. As the song reaches the highest point that it can, the clarinet, the oboe, and all the other instruments seen so far come together as this massive, uplifting, part of the song. The whole time, however, drums have been going underneath it all to emphasize the way that he fights, in how he throws large balls of feces at you. It's how he is a dung beetle and all that makes sense to his character, that they are bouncing around, hitting off everything, which would almost produce a drum-like sound. You, this small knight, taking on a much larger foe, who, as the fight progresses, enjoys it more and more, laughing every time that you two clash. And as a result of this jovial song, reflecting its character perfectly, I think this boss fight is one of the best in the game. The next track, however, is one of the terrifying, spider-like Nosk. This terrifying beast lures in its victims by using the face of someone it knows, or even the victim's own face, in order to bring it closer and closer to its lair, where it can kill it and feast on its insides. Its theme really reflects the aura of terror that is present around it at all times. When you first see it, it just looks like you, but as it grows into its true form, it twists your neck around, and that really heightens the sense of tension and terror that is felt in this entire fight. His theme also reflects the way a spider is moving around all of the time, in that through the use of strings, both plucked and bowed, using all three of the core strings such as the violin, the viola, and the cello, it seems to almost have a skittering presence to the music itself, which definitely shines through with a terrifying, massive spider spewing out infection, trying its damn best to kill you. And it really shows how Christopher Larkin is able to make an entire song perfectly showing the way a boss acts and moves by only using 3 instruments. Now the next boss that we need to talk about is Grim, but not this one. This is the real Grim we need to talk about, Nightmare King Grim, a far more terrifying and powerful version of the regular Grim, dealing 2 masks worth of damage with each successful attack. Nightmare King Grim, in my opinion, is the most difficult boss in the game, but as a result of the fantastic fight and the incredible music, he has become my favorite boss in the game as well. His theme is comprised of an organ, a choir, drums, and general strings, in order to create this atmosphere of a true god of nightmares. His theme is a very repetitious one, beginning with the organ and then having the choir come in on certain segments with the drums constantly going in the background, strings also bringing in a far more tense atmosphere, as Nightmare King Grim uses all the power at his disposal, flames, stabbing attacks, as well as sending hellfire bats after you in order to tear you limb from limb. My first encounter with him was a complete and utter nightmare, and the music truly reflects this vampiric god of death. Now, the next theme I want to talk about is the theme of the boss, Soulmaster. This boss is a rather large one, and is a master of using soul magic in the world of Hollow Knight. He resides in a certain part of the City of Tears which is high above everything else, an almost chapel-like place known as the Soul Sanctum. As a master of magic, his theme is suitably grandiose, beginning with a polyphonic choir, full string section, French horns, and a trombone. There is repetition in the song, quite similar to the Nightmare King Grim fight, in how the instrumentation and the tempo of the song repeat themselves. However, after briefly struggling to gain the ability that the Soulmaster is hiding, and failing, the Soulmaster grows increasingly desperate, and uses every trick in his arsenal, including body slams and rapid-fire magic attacks to try and finish you off. And in this section, the instruments differ slightly, with the organ growing more and more powerful, as well as there being a timpani added to the theme for extra desperation, which in my mind is almost like the Soulmaster's heart is beating louder and louder as he grows more and more fearful that this is his end. However, with his death, you are finally allowed to take the ability that he has been hoarding for himself for so long, which allows you to break through obstacles that are below you and also deal damage to anything below you as well in this powerful dive bomb. His theme is done very well and really shows the maniacal, almost religious fanaticism towards Soul that he and his followers would be in possession of. It doesn't hurt that Soul Master is also very fun and easy to fight. Moving away from boss themes for a minute, the next one I would like to talk about is the area known as the White Palace. Now, this area in particular was once the home of the Pale King, the ruler of Hallownest. To get to this place, you must go through one of his soldiers' dreams, but only after you actually level up the weapon that you need in order to invade dreams enough, which is a very long process and is very taxing on the mind. Now, onto the theme itself. It is by far the most complex theme that we've seen so far, and is composed of the most instruments out of any theme in the game. It begins with a solo harp, and is then joined by a choir as the theme moves on further. As it does so, a flute joins in along with the choir to give it a more dynamic range in terms of both tone and instrumentation. In this song, there is also a very short transition from one part to the next, using cymbals being clanged together in rapid succession. After this transition, harps and strings combine together to create this new sound in the second part of the song. However, the key difference here is the fact that an oboe and a clarinet duo is used in this second part of the song, as well as, in the very end of this song, French horns being joined in to create this large orchestral sounding score. In my opinion, I think the orchestral sound really helps to show that this was once a great palace, home to the most powerful being in all of Hallownest, the Pale King. And as you go through this once great palace, the soothing music belies the amount of traps that are in place here, including whirring saw blades, constantly jutting out spikes and thorns, ready to impale you at a moment's notice. And that is not even mentioning the terrifying Kingsmold guards. I will be talking about the final boss, the Hollow Knight himself. For some backstory, the Hollow Knight is the vessel chosen by the Pale King to seal away the infection and save Hallownest. He is the sibling to your character, and they are the child of the Pale King and his queen, birthed in the abyss far below to be infused with the power of the void so as they could kill the infection. However, in order to kill or contain the infection successfully, the vessels had to be completely devoid of all emotion, thought, and even speech. However, the Hollow Knight had an idea instilled within him that the Pale King was in fact his father and that the Pale King cared deeply about him. And as a result, he was unable to perform his duties to the degree in which Hollow Knight could be saved. And as a result, the infection was able to completely take over most of Hallownest. It is truly a tragic tale and really shows the creativity and writing capabilities of Team Cherry. As it is the theme for the final boss, the Sealed Vessel theme is most likely one of the most grandiose themes that we've seen so far. It opens with rising strings, and as the song progresses, the piano and even the harpsichord, with strings at the fore, as well as some bells and chimes, make up the core of the song. As the fight goes on further and further, the Hollow Knight seems to come to his senses slightly and starts stabbing himself in order to aid you in your combat. And as this occurs, the strings, including the violin, viola, and the cello, with a choir joining in slightly later, begin to make up the bulk of the song itself. And as they rise and rise, the Hollow Knight's life fades away. As you kill the Hollow Knight, however, drums begin to open up to a new section of the song, where the choir and the brass, mostly tubas and French horns, begin to rise further and further, and then a cutscene begins to play, which you are at the center, where the Hollow Knight himself once stood, and you are to become the new Hollow Knight, the new vessel for the infection. And as this occurs, the piano begins to rise more and more, with a viola and a flute beginning to become the centerpiece of the song, and as they fade out, the game begins to come to an end. All in all, Hollow Knight is a fantastic game, with amazing visuals, a rich story, and fun gameplay. However, the thing that ties it all together throughout the entire journey has been the music, and I think Christopher Larkin did a masterful job on the score. Whether it be a calm and soothing atmosphere, or a tense battle with a terrifying enemy, the score has remained rich and consistent throughout the entirety of the game, and I don't think that my experience would be any bit as impactful without the music. And to this day I would still listen to it in my spare time. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.